He's a vocal representative of the Never Trump movement, but still a conservative, though no longer a talk show host. Charlie Sykes is here.
Sykes is the editor-in-chief of a new conservative news outlet, The Bulwark, created by and filled with many faces from the recently shuttered Weekly Standard. The site describes the mission as encouraging more Republicans to stop hiding criticisms behind the label anonymous and, quote, push back against the moral and intellectual corruption that now poses an existential threat to conservatism. As a viable political force, Sykes also serves as the president of the Defending Democracy Together Institute, an advocacy organization for conservatives dedicated to fighting for the preservation of consistent conservative values and against abuses of power. Lots of conservative in his intro. Let's get to it with Mr. Charlie Sykes. Thank you so much.
And he's a generally nice guy.
Thank you for joining us. So what is the overall position at the Bulwark about where we are with the shutdown? What do you guys think about how this is playing out?
Well, I can tell you what I think about the
tell us what you
shutdown.
think. You're the editor-in-chief.
Because I have my own opinions. I have opinions all the time. But look, the shutdown is governmental malpractice. We can disagree about an issue, but one of the fundamental jobs of the president and of Congress is to keep the lights on. And we have this shutdown over the non-existent wall, which the president has already caved on. I mean, there is no wall. He's changed his position on all of that. You know,
and how has he changed his position on that? What do you mean?
Well, because we're not building a 2,000-mile concrete barrier. We're now down to fencing over a relatively small area. The last 2 years, when somebody like me said, you know, you're not going to build a 2,000-mile concrete barrier along the border, we were accused of being cucks and globalists and for open borders. And now the president is saying this.
He's winning the fence debate, though, which is a big change. I mean, anybody who knows anything about the border now knows that the fence actually... Oh, well, people who know anything about the border know the fence works. I mean, that's no longer up for discussion.
Well, he's not winning the debate because he's plummeting in the polls. The public is blaming him for this. And look, the reality is that we need some sort of physical barrier. There's no question about that. But what the president has done is he has toxified this issue by saying that we're going to build this wall that Mexico is going to pay for, and now it is no longer a wall, and Mexico is not going to pay for it. So it's kind of a classic Donald Trump bait and switch. So look, my take on this is, if this is really about national security, if this is really about border security, why are we not paying the people who are actually protecting the border? Coast Guard, TSA agents, border guards, the FBI, the federal courts are being shut down. The people who are handling air traffic control are not being. This is the recklessness of it is pretty close to the
But why do you put this all
at
at Donald Trump's feet when the Democrats are being completely intransigent? I mean, a year ago they were talking about $20 billion of funding for border security in the wall, and now they're saying we won't give you $1, not $1.
Well,
the Democrats aren't saying that, though.
Well, that's actually what Nancy Pelosi said recently. I mean, I don't know where she is today.
She said not
$1
for the wall.
Okay, well,
but they've offered billions of dollars for border security.
2006, the Secure Fence Act passes. Chuck Schumer's talking about $20 or $15 billion for border security overall, which would have included upgraded fencing and security. So I'm just wondering, I mean, as you obviously don't like the president, don't like what he's doing, but all of your ire seems to go toward the Republicans and toward Trump on this and not toward the Democrats, who obviously don't want a secure border. I mean, that's clear from...
See, that's just demagoguery.
How is that demagoguery?
No, because of course they want a secure border. We all want a secure. We all want a secure.
And by the way, wants a secure border.
Yes,
they want to lock people up for helping ICE.
Buck, your spin on this would work if we didn't have a videotape of Donald Trump saying, I will shut down the government. I won't blame you for shutting down the government.
I'm not saying he shouldn't get some blame for the shutdown. I'm saying why is
the video is awkward for your position, Buck, because the president has said, I will shut down the government. I'm honored to shut down the government. It is the Trump shutdown. So he has made it clear. Look, the reality is we don't all get what we want. If we shut down the federal government or portion of the federal government because we don't get this policy or that policy, we are in for a generation of governmental dysfunction.
Do you think the border is important? Do you think that border security is something that's worth fighting for? I mean, they passed a law in 2006 saying we're going to do this.
Right.
Never funded it. Now here we are. There is a crisis at the border. Whether it's a big crisis or a little crisis, we could argue about, but it's a major problem. Well, how are we ever going to address this?
There is no crisis at the border.
It is a made-up. Disagree.
Yeah, but there is no crisis at the border that we cannot handle. And if you want to deal with the crisis at the border, first of all, going back to the Coast Guard, the border security, the border guards, all of those folks, TSA, that is the real crisis. And there's all kinds of smart ways you can secure the border. This whole notion that Democrats, like I'm not going to carry water for the Democrats.
Well,
on this because
you are. I mean,
no. I'm not carrying water. What I'm saying is that when you say that Democrats don't want border security, there's lots of ways of securing the border without engaging in the kind of crude reductionist fiction that Donald Trump has engaged in, saying, I'm going to build this big, beautiful wall that Mexico is going to pay for. Because, Buck, are we going to get that big, beautiful wall?
Flourishes. He has had to change his position on what the wall, it's a fence maybe, maybe it's not a wall. Now we're saying it's a barrier. But this is a position that anybody who's known about the border in any real sense has known should happen for a long time. Congress passed a law in 2006 saying to do this. Trump has finally gotten this thing to where it's close to maybe happening. And we're going to criticize him because Mexico's not paying for it? I mean,
well, yes, because he broke. Well,
he did promise that.
Yeah.
I know, I understand that. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be criticized at all for it, but isn't the much more important issue that there's actually the possibility of getting the wall that we've been told we're going to get for almost 15 years?
Here is the Vesuvius of misinformation here. The fact is that the wall will not stop drugs. It will not stop crime. It will not be effective.
Who tells you this?
Well, almost anyone who has studied this.
I was on the phone yesterday with an hour talking to Immigration and Customs Enforcement for an hour. I was at the border all last week with Border Patrol. None of them agree with what you're saying.
Okay, well, we can talk about this. We can have a debate about the experts. Most of the drugs come through the ports of entry.
That's where we find most of the drugs. That is true. Because that's where most law enforcement resources are positioned.
And again, if you had an intelligent border security plan that actually was able to interdict much of this, if you had the resources put into it, if you were, for example, paying the Coast Guard, if you were actually paying the border security folks.
If we open the government tomorrow, this would all still continue. You make it sound like if we just fund the Coast Guard, you had 100,000 family units show up claiming asylum last year alone. That doesn't include any illegal crossings or any visa overstays. None of that goes away because of the Coast Guard. I mean, none of that goes away because of things. No, but we're talking about the crisis, and we're talking about crime, and we're talking about drugs and all of these things. Look. Here's the crisis. The crisis is FBI agents are out saying, you understand that we are not able to do our jobs. You have the people who are handling air traffic control saying, we don't really even know what the level of danger is. The crisis is our government isn't functioning. Look, we are a big country. We are a big economy. Right? There are a lot of things going on in this country. And the President of the United States, because he told folks at a rally he was going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it, has now shut down the federal government over this one issue, which is basically almost a rounding error in the federal budget. And all of these other issues we're ignoring. So, yes, you can focus. You can pretend like, America is this one crisis. We're a big country. We can deal with it. We can handle it. The wall has never been the answer. If Trump reopened the government tomorrow, do you think that there would be any action from the Democrats on border security that would bring the numbers down, that would stop illegal crossings in the next 2 years?
No,
you really believe that?
Well, then they need to step up. We've been waiting
for them to step up.
Well, they have a problem here too.
Well, hold on.
They have a problem.
Wait.
Sorry, Jamal. I would like to hand the.
No, I was enjoying this. I wanted some popcorn.
It's an important discussion, but I want you to go ahead, Jamal.
I think let's just be clear about one thing. Border crossings, the number of people who were here illegally were going down during the Obama administration. In fact, many people of Latino descent called him the deporter-in-chief because he was sending so many people back to Mexico. So the idea that Democrats don't care about immigration and don't care about border security is really just not true. At the same time, the Democrats have offered billions of dollars to the president, and it was even willing to give him money for his wall. Though he didn't take that deal a year ago, they're willing to do it.
I don't want to relitigate what Obama did. They changed the definition of a deportation to include people caught and turned around immediately at the border, and they also were trying to get amnesty through. So there's a political incentive to look tough at the border. No, I mean, but it's beyond.
And most of the people who come here, the state of California are here illegally, are here because of visa overstays. Okay, so that is not happening for people coming across the border.
No, you need there are so many problems. See, this is what we could agree on.
So Democrats are ready to address it. Democrats are ready, but to argue that Democrats aren't really ready to address it, it's just factually not true.
There was that deal from a year ago.
This was fascinating to me. So you're a conservative, but you two agree on everything with immigration, apparently.
No, and actually, Buck, don't tell me what I believe.
I'm talking about what you're saying.
No. I mean, I think that what he's saying is that you have simplified this to a point where, look, to say that one party cares about the border and the other party cares about the border, I mean, I mean, come on. We don't need to dumb down the argument to that extent.
I need you to explain to me.
Yeah.
I need you to explain to me why the state of California has passed legislation that would criminally prosecute citizens who try to aid immigrations and customs enforcement in California in any way. Proposition 10. I need you to explain why you do that unless you did not want people to actually enforce immigration
I think that's
laws.
an absurd law. I think it's an absurd law, and I'm not going to defend it.
Okay, but that's what's happening. I mean, these are the things that are going on, and that is supported by Nancy Pelosi.
So he's not defending it.
Kamala Harris.
This gets to my question, which is, you guys started the Bulwark after the Weekly Standard closed. Is there a market for an alternative conservative vision to Donald Trump, and is Donald Trump actually a conservative in your mind?
We're going to test that proposition, obviously, because one of the extraordinary things that has happened is watching how the conservative movement has basically decided that rather than being about ideas, it's going to be about identity politics, attitude, and serving Donald Trump. I mean, the flip on issues from free trade to all of these issues has been dramatic. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when conservatives claimed that they cared about character, when they actually cared about whether if the president lied, it would be a problem. When they cared about the rule of law, all of those things. I remember when if we were having a debate about whether the president should declare a national emergency in order to get what he wants, the conservatives would say, well, this is what we've been talking about for generations. This is governmental overreach. So I don't know whether the conservative movement has become so tribal that there is room. But we're going to test that proposition. We're going to test that proposition, and it's a difficult one. I don't minimize it.
Can you give us? We want to go to a break. We want to talk to you a little more about what you're actually doing at the Bulwark. So we'll have more for you in just a moment. Stay with us.